I'm Aleja.
I'm Juli.
I'm Duan.
I'm Juliana.
I'm Diana.
And I'm Luna, and welcome back to Learning How to Learn. In the last episode, the group talked about self-regulated language learning and how the students can plan, monitor, and evaluate their own learning. So today we want to continue from that point and discuss something really important. Do language learning strategies and self-regulation actually work? Because honestly, sometimes teachers tell us things like use flashcards or practice every day, but not everyone gets the same results. So I think the real question is not only if strategies work, but when they work and why they sometimes fail.
I totally agree, Luna. I think strategies can help a lot, but only if students actually understand how to use them. Like, for example, memorizing vocabulary lists can be useful at first, but if you never use those words in conversation, you probably forget them really fast. And I have noticed that some students use strategies just because the teacher says so, not because they really connect with them. So maybe the problem is that strategies become mechanical instead of meaningful.
Yes, Maleja. And I think that's where SRLL becomes important because it's not only about using strategies randomly. It's more about being conscious of your learning process. For example, if I realize my listening skills are weak, I can decide to listen to podcasts every day. Then check if I'm improving. And if it's not working, maybe I change the strategy. That reflection is what makes SRLL different from just studying.
That's true, Duban. I research also says that more proficient learners usually use strategy in a more effective way. But I don't think it's because they are naturally smarter. I think advanced learners already know what works for them. Like beginners may depend more on repetition or translation, while advanced students may be practiced with debates, movies, or self-correction. So the strategy changes depending on the learner's level.
Yeah, Juliana, and I think motivation matters too. I think strategies work better when students actually have a reason to learn English. For example, if someone wants to travel, study abroad, or watch content in English, they are probably more willing to practice consistently. But if English only feels like another school subject, students might use strategies only for exams and then forget everything later.
And honestly, context affects everything too. In Colombia, many students don't have much exposure to English outside the classroom. So, even if they know good strategies, they don't always have opportunities to practice. Also, in large class, teachers sometimes don't have enough time to teach strategies properly. They might say, work independently, but students don't always know how to do that.
That's such a good point, Juli, because sometimes we assume students are automatically autonomous, but being independent is also something you learn. I remember in some classes, teachers only focus on grammar exercises, and nobody really explained how to learn English outside the classroom. So, students depend completely on the teacher.
Yes, Luna, and I think teachers play a huge role here. Instead of only giving activities, they can model strategies step by step. For example, before a listening activity, the teacher could explain how to predict information, identify keywords, or take notes while listening. That makes strategies more practical and easier to apply later.
Yes, and reflection activities help too, like learning journals or self-evaluations. Sometimes students don't even notice their progress because they only focus on grades. But if they reflect on what they learned, what was difficult, and what strategies helped them, they become more aware of their learning process.
But we should also admit that strategies are not magic solutions. Sometimes students use many strategies and still struggle because they feel anxious or afraid of making mistake. I think emotional factors are really important in language learning. A student may know vocabulary and grammar, but if they are too nervous to speak, communication becomes difficult anyway.
Yeah, of course. That's why supportive classroom environments matter so much. If students feel judged every time they make a mistake, they might stop participating. But when teachers create spaces where mistakes are seen as part of the learning, students feel more comfortable experimenting with strategies and practicing English.
So, after discussing all of this, I think our conclusion is that language learning strategies and self-regulate learning strategies do work, but not automatically. They work better when students understand their purpose, adapt them to their needs, stay motivated, and have opportunities to practice in meaningful contexts. And this connects perfectly with the next episode because our classmates will talk more specifically about the Colombian EFL reality and challenges students and teachers face in real classroom.
Thanks for listening to episode 3 of Learning How to Learn. See you in the next episode. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.